We're going to do something a little different. I'm streaming directly from my PS4 because I'm a man who likes to gamble. And we're going to see how long we can actually play until we reach that blue screen of death. I actually got my first one while streaming last week, which is kind of unfortunate, and it's something I've noticed happening kind of more and more often. So, yeah, kind of hoping we kind of get a quality patch here soon, just because yeah, we could definitely use some TLC to this game on PS4 right now. I don't know if Xbox has the same issues that we've been having, but it does seem like some of the lag, the disconnects, it seems to be getting a little worse lately. So, yeah, I'm definitely hopeful that we see some improvements sooner as opposed to later. Just because, from what I read in my comment sections on, different videos that I've made and from what I've heard from people online, it does seem like it's kind of driving quite a few people away from the game. So I do hope that GGG has some plans in place to kind of, save things down the road. Another thing I did want to say at the beginning of this broadcast, just because I keep meaning to bring it up during different videos and different streams. If you're someone who watches on the Live from PlayStation app, and you've noticed that I don't comment on there, it's because I physically can't. For whatever reason, it seems like whenever you go to comment on there, on your own videos, it'll load 98% and then disconnect. So if anyone watches these on Live from PlayStation, if you do have any questions or comments or anything like that, kind of the best way to go about it would unfortunately be to just go right on YouTube and ask me there, just because I can actually respond and see your comments there. Unfortunately, through Live from PlayStation, I can't. I'm not sure why that's a thing. Interesting drop right away. Cool. Realm is restarting in 15. Wow. I guess this is going to be a really short stream tonight. Maybe this is that quality of life patch I was hoping for. Approximately 20 minutes. So yeah, this is going to be a very short stream, unfortunately. Yeah, there's definitely a lot to understand in the game. Honestly though, like, hey, what's up, Soho? Honestly though, once you play enough, it, I don't really know how to describe it. It really kind of opens up for you. Like, things start to kind of click into place. Once you've kind of built, 4 or 5 builds, things seem to, fall in place like a giant puzzle. Hey, Fearless, how's it going tonight? I mean, I definitely felt the same way when I first started playing. Everything felt super complicated, and, it was a bit discouraging. But then once builds kind of started clicking, like, it felt super rewarding, and, like, I enjoyed the game that much more. I mean, honestly, the point I'm at right now in the game, this is probably about my favorite part of the game. You just start mapping, and you kind of start gearing towards, that final end game build that you've got planned out. You start to figure out exactly what pieces of gear you're putting which gems in permanently. You're kind of doing that final shaping of your actual character. And this is, like I said, this is probably my favorite part of the whole thing. Would you mess up on the passive tree? I mean, pretty much anything else is fixable. I mean, and even as long as, like, you didn't screw up half of your passive tree, you can still fix that, too. You might still have enough respec points on your passive tree to kind of go back and, fix the nodes you didn't want to grab. potentially might just need a better weapon too to do more damage. Like honestly, this build that I'm using, like I was kind of running into the same thing. Or speaking of Orbs of Regret, you know, I'm relatively tanky. I don't die very often, but my damage output wasn't the greatest. Now I'm kind of starting to melt things again, and it's because I picked up Kondo's Pride, a 35 weapon. Oh, dude, you can. I'm sure you can fix your damage output with a better weapon. And it may just be a matter of I've honestly never bought any currencies on websites. Was never really a big fan of it in the first place, just because, you know, there's always that big fear you're gonna, you know, get conned. And then I became less of a fan of it when I found out that one of the big currency selling sites actually stole one of my videos and wrote it off as their own article. That kind of soured me on them even more. I mean, honestly, if you farm gear while you're mapping, you can make enough currency to not have to actually, you know, buy any from anywhere. I have a video on my YouTube page about the Chaos and Regal recipe, and like I would suggest that above anything else. It's a really, like, actually, that's what I gathered this gear for. I can even show you right here. So I tend to keep a couple of stash tabs completely open just to you know, gather items that are between. So for Chaos Orbs, you're going to want items that are between level, I think it's 65 and 74. And basically what you have to do is complete a full set. So what I do here is I, you know, start building up to 4 full sets of items. And then once you have once you have a full set of items, I should say, if you don't identify the items, these I don't need 5, you can't really fit 5. But once you have a full set of items, if you don't identify them and you sell them all at the same time to one of the vendors, it'll give you 2 Chaos Orbs. It's a chromatic item. The only stipulation is they have to be gold items, and like I said before, they have to be between level 65 and 74. For Regal Orbs, it's the same thing, except it's between, well, it's level 75 and above. Double check these rings. So if I can get one more one-handed weapon, I can actually do one of the recipes right now. So I'm just 1 shy. So we'll go ahead, we'll run another map. Hopefully I can get in one more map before the round. Yeah, I should be able to get one in 10 minutes. Yeah, unfortunately the way that the patch is working tonight, like, this is probably going to be a super short stream. It'll just be, you know, for these basically 15 minutes, but just because it looks like the downtime is going to be at least 20 minutes. And I typically don't stream like super late. I want to run a tier 2 instead. Let's take 3 of these. One of those had higher quality, didn't it? 2 of them did, actually. Yeah, we'll just upgrade it and hope for the best. Crikey, eh? Speaking Australian. I haven't actually looked at the 3.7.2 update, so hopefully it's something pretty good. Hopefully it's all stability fixes. Just because it does seem like a lot of people have dropped off of this game because of all the connectivity issues, which is a real shame. So, because this league's a lot of fun, and they added some awesome mechanics. You know, the league mechanics themselves are fun. The fact that melee is viable is super fun. But, you know, when people are getting disconnected from the game like every 20 to 30 minutes, you know, it's understandable people are frustrated. So, hope for the sake of the game that they go ahead and fix it. I don't seem to run into it as often as other people do. I think a large part of that is, one, I play on a PS4 Pro, and two, I have it installed on an external storage drive, so it's not actually installed directly on my PS4. And from what I've heard from people, that actually helps some of the stability issues. Nice. I think the only way I could get an internet upgrade around here is if we just got a better provider in the area. I don't know, I can't complain too much. I've only had to have Spectrum out to my house once to fix the internet. See, I don't know about recently because I haven't played on PC for quite a while, but I know when I used to play on PC, I would never get disconnected. I never had that issue. I think a lot of that would have to do with the quality of your PC, though, too. Just because, I mean, that's kind of the thing with a PS4 is, you know, you're running your console and you don't really have the option to downscale a whole lot. And you obviously, you know, the hardware on your PS4 is only going to be as good as the hardware on a PS4. You don't have a way to, you know, upgrade your RAM, graphics card, you know, your processor, any of that. You know, it's what Sony puts in the system. Whereas, you know, people have some gaming computers that are, you know, pretty beefy, pretty awesome. Yeah, we'll, because I don't know, I might have pushed the stream off to tomorrow night if I'd have known ahead of time that there was going to be downtime for a patch tonight. We'll see if it'll actually still let me stream from, like, the title screen after everything shuts down. If it does, maybe we'll go ahead and read through the patch notes before I end the stream. Socket. One thing I was actually going to mention too about see if we can grab some gloves. Oh, and a shield, perfect. That'll go with our one-handed weapon. We can grab one of those also. One thing I was going to mention about getting a different weapon in the trade market is I surprisingly found this sword that I'm using for 5 fusing orbs. And it's actually a pretty solid weapon. Like, so I'm not really super familiar with Tectonic Slam. I mean, it's a physical attack, right? Are you using any sort of elemental damage with it? Because, like, the weapon that I'm using here is actually fire. Okay. I honestly don't know of any off the top of my head. Just because a lot of the unique weapons are something I'm still kind of learning which ones, you know, are viable for different builds. And usually it's as I create a build, and I haven't done an actual Tectonic Slam build yet. one thing you can do is if there's a specific weapon type that you're looking at using, like if you want to use like a two-handed sword or a two-handed axe, or, you know, multiple one-handeds or a one-handed and a shield, you can always go into the trade market itself, start at like the highest level weapon, and just browse and look at the different uniques. You know, typically the higher up you go, the more it's going to cost. It doesn't necessarily always work that way. But it'll give you kind of a good idea of, you know, some of the higher level weapons, and typically you'll find one that at least there'll be enough of on the marketplace to where you can actually afford it, because there'll be a few people who are reasonable and who actually want to sell their items, so they don't, you know, price it super ridiculously high. Because, I mean, let's face it, if, you know, there's more than 20 of the item you're trying to sell on the trade market, you probably shouldn't be charging more than a couple of chaos for it. Oh, dude, with 12 chaos, that should be plenty of chaos for you to actually be able to afford something decent. Like, for pretty much any weapon type, even like with the ridiculous PS4 market, you can still find something for like around 5 or 6 chaos. At least you reasonably should be able to. And like, you don't necessarily have to use like the weapons that people tell you to use on the forums. Like, there's always alternate weapons you can use. And I mean, you could even find a rare that has a few really solid stats on it that'll help you out with too. I mean, I have quite a few different videos. Oh, and the realm went down. The stream's still going though, so why don't we do this? I'm going to go ahead and look online, and we'll actually go through the patch notes, just because I'm kind of curious to see what they're actually updating in the game. So that way we don't have to just go ahead and end the stream right there. Then, like, you guys can still ask some questions and stuff too. So, I mean, you know, the title screen's not the most interesting thing in the world to look at. I kind of wish I'd have actually streamed from my capture card on my PC now, because I could actually pull up the console patch notes for everyone to see. But, you know, I can kind of look through them on here too. So 3.7.2, I believe is what they said. Yeah, it's labeled the 24th. I've actually had one Divine Orb drop this league too, which was a super nice drop. And Outlaws, dude, don't worry about struggling through the game. Honestly, like, you're gonna learn more from struggling than succeeding in this game. Like, and that's the thing. You can go ahead and you can, like, follow someone's build guide and, you know, create a great build right off the bat and, you know, have something that's viable, but it's not going to help you understand the mechanics of the game. Unless you're actually going through their build guide and really reading on the different things that they're actually doing with their build. Like, pay attention to, you know, exactly what skill gems they're using, why they're using those skill gems, seeing on their passive skill tree, like, why they're picking each node. Like, really put some thought into it, because you don't want to just, you know, blindly go along with what they're doing without actually understanding why they've chosen the different things they've chosen for their build. So let's see. PS4 patch notes. Console-specific fixed a bug which would cause instant skill buffs on X to interfere with interaction. So that's good. So basically, they're fixing the whole... honestly, just on the forums, has some decent builds. So pathofexile.com, go to the forum section. A lot of people post their builds right on there. And most of it's a lot of PC gamers who've been playing the game since 2013 when the game came out, so they have a really solid grasp on what the game, you know, actually entails and the different things that you want to do with the build. So I mean, you can just make sure that it's listed for 3.7, just because that's the current, you know, round of patches that we're on. Anything 3.6 and older could still be viable, but it's before the big melee patch, so it's not necessarily going to be current, and they did make some changes to the passive skill tree since then. So just make sure it's 3.7, and I would look for stuff that is considered beginner friendly or has the word budget in it. Anything with the word budget in it's going to have cheaper item, well, what should be cheaper items on the trade market for you to use for the build, and anything that's beginner friendly is going to kind of avoid a lot of more complicated mechanics. So it looks like they're fixing the bug to where if you assign a skill to X, it's gonna, interfere with you picking things up and interacting with chests and stuff. So that's good. That's, a big part of the reason why I had X as a default on some of my older characters in the last league. They're improving the visibility of Legion symbols, which is odd because I haven't had an issue with that. Add an effect that is placed on your character while you are near the activation crystal. That's fine too, I guess. Evolve Summon Skeletons is super awesome for Necromancers. I used it for my Necromancer last league. That's a solid suggestion. I would highly recommend that also. Yeah, the X skill bug's going to be gone apparently, so that'll be nice. So honestly, Legion chests can now be affected by curses. That's cool. I didn't know that they weren't before. I guess I just never paid attention to it, so that's good. My curses will actually do something to it now. Re-enabled the Stygian Vice reward from the Abyss rewards. Reduce the range at which various Legion monsters will become aggressive. Okay, so that's good. So you won't have to aggro them from such a close range. So some bugs with timeless jewels have been fixed. Okay, so that's basically it for that. So some Legion improvements, which are okay, I suppose. Yeah, with a Necromancer build, one of the biggest things you're going to focus on with all of your gear itself is stacking as much life as physically possible. And since you're probably using an intelligence-based character too, some energy shield would be a good idea also. Improved audio levels. See, this isn't even like the stuff I'm hoping that they would fix. More audio fixes. Visuals rendering correctly. Frostblink can now be supported by Totem Trap and Mine support jumps. That's fine. Bladestorm can be supported by Multi-Strike, so that's pretty nice actually. Fixed a bug where Bladestorm's initial hit did not actually hit. I kind of hope they, fix that with Cyclone too. Yeah, also any movement skill, throwing Fortify support on there, typically a good idea. Speaking of which, they fixed a bug where Fortify and similar effects such as Endurance Charge or Melee Stun could not be gained while using Shield Charge with a wand equipped. That's interesting, because before this league, you actually couldn't use Shield Charge with the wand equipped. Yeah, and that's the thing too, like, you really just have to find a build that you actually enjoy. That's more important than, running something that's meta. The reason why I ran Cyclone, even if it would have been bad this season, like, which obviously it's not bad this league, a bunch of people are running it, but it's just something I've wanted to do for a really long time. Yeah, defenses are key in this game. It's a much more important element to this ARPG than pretty much any other ARPG on the market. So many of them are just strictly, how much DPS can I add to my character, and that's not the case in this game. Like, if you die, obviously you're not doing any DPS, and that's kind of the big moral of the story in this game is like, a dead Exile does no damage. I say that all the time. Chain hook bug has been fixed. So, like, it looks like a lot of different skill bugs have been fixed. Fixed a bug where Flame Dash can be cast multiple times, even if you only use... See, my Leap Slam does that too. Like, they're fixing some bugs, but I don't think they realize that the bugs are also affecting other skills also. Which hopefully that means, like, them fixing the bug on, like, specific skills will fix it for all of them, but... Added 3D. See, it's just... There's just not a lot of meat here. Okay, here we go. Crash fixes. Fixed a client crash that occurred when using flicker strikes supported by ancestral occult. So that's super specific. Fixed a client crash that occurred due to an animation having an event outside of its timeline, and fixed 2 instance crashes. Okay, so that could potentially be good. They're very vague about what the last, 2 crash fixes are. But I mean, I suppose it's better than nothing. So you need to run the 6 trials once every league. So when the new league starts, you'll have to. But if you've already completed the 6 trials for one character in this league and you decide to start another character this league, those trials will carry over, so you can just run the lab. And yeah, absolutely. Your first priority is definitely to get your resistances up to 75%. Getting your resists up to 75%, stacking life on literally any character. Like, you need a certain amount of life. Usually the rule of thumb is at least 5,000 effective life, which can mean, mixed between your life and energy shield. My character only has about 4,000 life right now, but I'm also using a leech build, so there's actually a little bit more leeway there because of the fact that I'm effectively regaining health constantly. So with like a leech build, my main focus is just making sure that I have enough life stacked up and enough leech stacked up to the point where I'm not just getting one shot. And that's the thing too, running like a necromancer build or any sort of spellcaster in this league where physical attackers and cyclone builds in particular are so popular, it's actually going to lower the price of a lot of your gear for other characters like spellcasters and necromancers. So take advantage of that this league. If you're playing a non-physical attacking character, your items should be a lot cheaper in the shop because of it. It really depends on where you start in the passive tree. There are certain builds that do have some resist nodes, and you can use that left stick, left D-pad search to kind of look for resists that are within your range, but typically like 90% of your resists you're going to find through your gear anyways, so that's a good assumption. Like, you're absolutely going to need to find it on your gear. And mana is something else that's easy to stack on your gear too. Yeah, the Tabula Rasa I think is so expensive because everyone's trying to 6-link their Cyclone builds early. They'll get cheaper as the league goes on, but since we're kind of technically in like the start of league right now, the price on it's much higher. Honestly, your best bet right now for getting a Rasa is just running Act 9 Blood Aqueducts for the Divination card that helps you get it. What's up, Wavy? It can be time consuming, but that grind's a lot cheaper than actually buying one from the trade market. I haven't even looked. Ah, I gotcha. My Cyclone's been surprisingly effective with just a 4-link. I've actually changed my build up quite a bit compared to what I originally had planned out. I did take out a lot of the life leech nodes that I had towards the bottom of the tree, just because I realized that they were kind of redundant to have that many. Something I haven't brought up in many other videos, or really any other video that I've made. Your leech is actually capped at 1.6% of your overall damage. So if you're grabbing extra nodes or you have items that add additional leech, it becomes a wasted stat. What I had wasn't completely wasted because it was actually giving me a little bit of extra damage and a little bit of extra speed on my leech, but there were nodes up above, kind of towards the middle of the tree, that made more sense to grab. Quality actually does affect your chance to fuse links. So the higher quality, the higher percentage chance you have of actually getting connections when you use orbs of fusing. So that's something to keep in mind too. If you do have, the extra currency to bump your item up to 20% quality, do that before you start burning through your orbs of fusing. Granted, it's still going to take a long time either way. Yeah, I mean, you can be throwing away, passive skill points, and keep in mind that that percentage is capped at 1.6, but the higher that you have your damage output set to, it's 1.6% of that damage output. So it gets to a point where the more damage you do, the more health you're leeching. So at that point, you're actually trying to stack more damage to gain more sustainability, which is what I think is kind of fun about, builds like Cyclone, is the fact that, your offense is directly tying into your defense. And armor's kind of interesting just because it's physical damage mitigation, which, I mean, for a melee build, it's good to have. Um, but there's a lot of enemies that are also doing elemental damage. So it's really only serving so much of a purpose. Obviously, your 75% resist for all three elemental types are good. But physical damage mitigation actually doesn't count for, like, anything that's bleeding or chaos. So that's something you also have to keep in mind because, like, poison and bleed don't count as hits per se because it's not technically hitting you as it's doing damage. So your armor's actually not helping you with that. But I mean, the best thing that you can do for like bleed and poison damage is actually having a flask equipped that negates all of that, or just outright gets rid of your bleeding or poison on use. That's something I carried on me last league. I'm probably going to start carrying it on me this league as well. There is also a Pantheon that once you capture the monster's soul, I forget which one it is, but you actually become immune to poison. It's poison or bleed? It's one or the other. And I think Slayer actually has. I was almost positive that there's like an ascendancy node where you become immune to bleeding or almost immune to bleeding. I know there's one for sure where you don't take any more reflect damage, which is ridiculously useful. And that's the thing, like a lot of this stuff you don't really know until you've actually built the character before. Like I'm actually kind of learning a lot about I'm learning a lot more about physical melee characters just because before this league I hadn't really bothered with one because they've been in such a bad place for such a long time that I've just used necromancers and casters for the longest time while playing this game. So it's kind of, just broadened my knowledge of the game that much more, which is good. That's the main reason why when each league comes around, I try and use a different type of character. I typically not going to run the same character in two different leagues, at least not back to back. I might come back to it a few leagues down the road, but I typically try and use not only a different ascendancy, but a different class in general. It's a bit too early to really put a whole lot of thought into what I want to do next league. Although I haven't really played around with the Scion a whole lot, so that's a definite possibility, just because there's a lot of freedom with the Scion. I mean, you can literally do anything. So I think that would be fun. But I mean, so far, like, last league I built a Necromancer, a Winter Orb build, and a Volatile Dead build. And then, and for the classes, obviously I used a Witch for the Necromancer, a Shadow Trickster for the Winter Orb build, and then a Inquisitor Templar for the Volatile Dead build. Now this season I'm using a Slayer Duelist, so I mean next league, considering the fact that melee should still be in a pretty good spot, I may end up just going with a Marauder, just because I've literally never built a Marauder on console or PC. But I mean at this point, I've used 4 of the characters, so basically it's, Marauder Scion that I haven't touched at all. Oh, well, the new patch is actually downloading, so that's a positive. I may actually end up having to exit out of the game to install it, though, which is kind of the problem. So, I mean, they did mention in the patch notes that it's supposed to fix a bit of the crashing issues, so hopefully it gives everyone a bit more game stability, because I think it's been a big problem with the game lately, and, you know, like I said, I hear a lot of frustration from people who really enjoy the game, but have stopped playing it entirely because of the crashing issues, so, you know, hopefully this is the patch we've all been waiting for, because, you know, the performance issues are just, they're bad. Doesn't matter how good the game is if you can't play it for more than 20 to 30 minutes at a time. Especially a game like this. You know, you get that great drop and then your game crashes. I haven't had that happen to me personally. Like I said, I don't seem to have as many crashing issues as what people report, but I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I have the game installed on an external drive that's attached to my PlayStation. I've heard from a lot of people that that helps performance a lot. Yeah, and the X-Bug is annoying too, just because, you know, this character in particular that I've built, I'd be okay with not using the X button. Like, I could probably get by with just using, you know, 7 slots to equip skills. But it's nice to have 8. And, you know, instinctively you want to use the X button for something, and let's be honest, no one uses their default attack skill for anything in this game. Not after the tutorial area. You don't have a reason to. But yeah, like I don't disagree with anyone who hasn't played because of the bugs. Like, I would feel that way about any game, regardless of how much I liked it. You know, that's the thing. Some content creators will, you know, kind of blindly, you know, they'll put on the rose shaded glasses and just kind of, oh, everything's fine, you know. But, you know, that's not necessarily the case. If something's wrong and you don't bring it up, it's not going to get fixed. So I don't think there's anything wrong with, you know, openly saying this needs to be fixed about the game, or, you know, this isn't good with the game right now. Because it needs to be put in a better place so everyone can enjoy the game. Yeah, last night was actually the first time, or not last night, it was on Friday. Friday was the first time I actually blue screened during a stream, uh, which was kind of impressive when you really think about it. Because I probably blue screened, conservatively, I'd say about 10 times since the game's launched. So I've been kind of more fortunate, but I have had the game completely freeze a couple of times. Yeah, I set my curses onto holding the right trigger and hitting one of the buttons. But I mean, my curses this season with this character anyways, I've set as auras. So, and yeah, that's exactly what I do. I do the same thing Fearless does with putting my auras on that R2 bar. Hey, Darkness, how's it been going, dude? I did actually want to make a video earlier this afternoon after I got done with work. Like top 5 common mistakes to avoid. But when I got home, all the power in my house was off. There was actually a power outage here. I didn't get power until I was home for about an hour and a half. So unfortunately, I'll probably make that video tomorrow, but I was kind of hoping to have it up before the stream today. Yeah, you can, when you hit the right stick in to assign your skills, if you hold R2, you can assign 4 more skills. Oh, okay. Yeah, the other thing you can also do, well, I suppose it wouldn't necessarily. I don't know if those would stick or not. I'd have to test it out, but I know that like you can swap weapons, so I almost wonder if you assign skills when you swap weapons that aren't slotted into that weapon. So say if I had a curse equipped in like my boots, if I assign that to my alternate weapon skills, I wonder if kind of activating that there and then swapping weapons back would make that still work. In theory, I think that would work. I just haven't tried it yet. Okay, cool. So I'm glad someone can confirm that works. In theory, in my mind, I'm like, that should work, but I don't want to say that something should work and it doesn't work. So that's good to know. So yeah, so weapon swapping will make it so you can actually equip some extra skills technically. So that would work really well for like your auras. At least that's what I would use it for. Yeah, and that makes sense. Because obviously if it's in your weapon and then you weapon swap, like that should deactivate the skill jumps because you technically don't have them equipped anymore. So mechanics wise that makes total sense. Yeah, I was surprised that our power went out though, because like it wasn't even a thunderstorm; it was just a really heavy rainstorm that we had up here. Granted, it was pretty crazy. We had like horizontal rain, but I still don't expect that to knock our power out entirely. Let's see, I'm gonna try something here quick. Hopefully this doesn't end the stream. Oh no, it doesn't. It actually went to the sim. I haven't actually. That's actually a hefty patch. Hey dude, I would love to be in Orlando right now. Yeah, this is like our first or second bad rainstorm up here in Wisconsin, but normally, I mean, aside from the bitter cold in the wintertime, during the summer, it's typically not that bad up here. Although we're supposed to be in like the mid to upper 80s all week, apparently. So it'll just be super. I don't mind the heat. It's just when it gets humid that it completely sucks, and I don't want to go outside. But having a young kid, I definitely spend a decent amount of time outside. My biggest thing when the power went out today was we just went grocery shopping yesterday and grabbed like $120 worth of groceries. So the last thing I wanted to actually have happen was to like lose all those groceries. But luckily the power was only out for about an hour, so our refrigerator was still pretty cold. Yeah, I haven't gotten to the red maps in this season yet, but I've heard that Elder's been one-shotting. Elder maps have been one-shotting a lot of even like the more experienced PC players. So my assumption is kind of the early game. What's up, Dirk? How's it going tonight? Yeah, my controller died, even though it's plugged in. Damn, dude, 8K health, and it's still... That's savage. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, my patch is only about a quarter of the way through right now. Yeah, I've only got like 4K health right now. Like I said, having the leech like helps with that, but one, the passive tree by the the Slayer Ascendancy, or well, by the duelist in general, there's not really a lot of health nodes, so I'm relying heavily on health from items. Yeah, the stream slows down the download patch a ton. Just because I'm technically using download and upload in order to stream. So honestly, I'll probably just chat here for a while, and I mean, we'll unfortunately probably end the stream here in the title screen. Just because, I'm not going to make everyone wait another like 25 minutes for my patch to finish and then play through, but so is it a matter of like getting one-shotted, or is he just out-damaging you in the long run? Yeah, so you might be to a point where it's more of like a balancing act between even potentially lowering your health a little bit just to try and gain some more damage. It's counterintuitive just because so much of this game is based off of building up your defenses. But yeah, I mean, if you're just getting out damaged at that point, and it's not something that's necessarily like an instant type of, you know, death, sometimes you do have to lower your life slightly in order to gain a little bit more damage. It's hard to say without actually like being the one actually witnessing what's going on too. Like I said, I haven't reached red maps yet in this league just because my playtime's been so limited. But I'm sure once I'm there, it might be different. It probably will be a little different for my build just because leeching the life right back is helping. Yeah, ouch, that hurts. So yeah, the 10 chaos, and not only that, but like every time you die, he's stealing 10% of that overall XP. But yeah, I mean, at least you're in the red maps, so at least you're to the point where you're actually perfecting your build as opposed to trying to completely overhaul something. A dead exile does no damage should probably be like the catchphrase for my YouTube channel. I've probably said that in at least 5 separate videos. But I mean, when you put 8k worth of life on your character, you're definitely putting in your work to make sure you're not dying. No, I feel ya. I mean, the biggest things I always suggest defensively, obviously it's always resists health, some sort of, secondary defense, like, either your energy shield, your armor, or your evasion. But then, I mean, leeching is always really nice to have, especially if you're outputting a lot of, high physical damage. And you can leech off of elemental damage too if you're actually using attacks. Fortify is always great to equip to at least your movement skill. I mean, aside from that, it's really, you can equip different skills on cast from damage taken. You can put on some auras or some curses that can, potentially lower your opponent's damage output. Like Enfeeble is one that I have on my Cyclone build, and I have it actually set as an aura. So I mean, it's taking up 35% of my mana reserve, but it's also lowering my opponent's chance to hit, their chance to crit. It's essentially a defensive buff for me in the fact that it's lowering enemies' offense. So right now I actually only have, I think it's 30% of my own mana available to me because 70% of it's in reserve between throwing Enfeeble and Vulnerability on his auras, which typically doesn't work because you can only have one curse at a time by default. But the boots that I have on currently on my build actually make it so I can add an additional curse, so I can double curse enemies. So Vulnerability gives me the nice offensive buff, and then Enfeeble gives me the nice defensive buff, and the fact that it's essentially debuffing my enemies. Once you get to red maps, a lot of it's really just being creative and just, thinking a bit outside the box as to, something small you can tweak on your build that's going to make it more efficient. If it's a matter of, Elder slowing you down, it could even be something as simple as equipping like a Quicksilver Flask or a Silver Flask to gain Onslaught. I mean, it all depends. You can definitely build a really solid rare mace. If you go on the database, though, you can actually, or even PoE.ninja, you can actually see all the different unique maces. And that's kind of what I do when I decide exactly what item I want to use for a specific build. I'll just actually go on one of the databases online just because, there's a ton of items in the game, so it's really difficult to remember them all off the top of your head. I'll use the online databases to my advantage and just decide, like, okay, this item should work really well for my build. And then from there, I'll just look on the actual trade market and see if there's one available for, a reasonable price. And that's kind of the advantage to looking it up on PoE.Ninja, is it's also like it's like a marketplace database, so it'll actually show you what it's selling for on PC, which doesn't always equal out to, the price that it's going to be on console. But I mean, if it's something that's listed as, only costing 1 or 2 chaos on PC, you shouldn't be paying an Exile for it on PS4. Although there's going to be people who ask for an Exalt. Like the sword I showed when we were actually online and doing, the live stream in game. That sword, there were literally like 30 some of those on the actual trade market, ranging anywhere from, the 5 orbs of fusing that I paid for it to someone else is asking for 40 chromatics, and other people are asking for 3 Exalts. So, I mean, it's really all a matter of going through the trade market and actually, checking each and every listing to see what people are, putting as their asking cost, and just finding that 1 or 2, reasonable people out of everyone who's posting it online. Like, don't just look through that first page, like, sift through all of them and get yourself the best deal. Don't waste currency if you don't have to, and, don't reward those people who are trying to bleed the market of, every bit of currency that people have. That would be my biggest, piece of advice when you're actually going through and looking through the trade market is, don't let people price gouge you. Because hopefully, as long as you're not looking for something that's super rare, you should find someone who's going to sell it to you for a reasonable price. You may have to wait, a couple days, or, you may have to put in a couple of bids on, a couple of people's different items, but it's worth waiting a little bit to not encourage people who are just, purposely gouging people. Because they know what they're doing. They know their item's not worth an Exalted Orb. There's only a handful of uniques in the game that are actually worth an Exalt or more. It's just facts. So like these people who will have like, these even just rare items up on the marketplace. They're not 6 links. There's nothing, special about them. Someone just assumes that, oh, this has triple resists. Someone will buy it for an Exalt. That's a terrible assumption. That's a terrible pricing mechanic. That's something to keep in mind too, is if you are looking to purchase a rare item, you can get away with that rare item missing one of the stats that you need on it, as long as you have an empty modifier spot to the point where you can mastercraft that stat on there. And that's kind of what I mean about being clever with your builds too, is, thinking outside the box and, figuring out a way to get these items to work for you. "24 mirrors? That's insane. Dude, so many players have never even seen a mirror drop. Like, I've never seen a mirror drop. Someone is dreaming big. There's probably PC players who have been playing since the game launched who don't even have 24 mirrors in standard. There probably aren't 24 mirrors on PS4 players come out. You're probably absolutely right in that. I've literally told people when offering stuff on the trade market, that they're just not going to sell their item. I've told people that when they've gotten like snarky and declining, my offers. Like I'll offer mirrors are a currency item that's like stupid rare, and it basically allows you to make a copy of an item. So not only, are they super valuable because of rarity, but they're also super valuable because of their utility in the game. But like they're almost a myth because of like how rare they are. Right, you start gathering mirrors in your house and just, ship them via FedEx right to their houses. I don't either, man. I'd be lucky if I've got 5 mirrors in my house. I'm just not that vain to have that many mirrors. I mean, it's kind of the same concept. So, I mean, a mirrored item is what a mirror would create, but it's not the same in value. You guys are harsh on yourselves. But yeah, you'll find mirrored items laying around the game. It's just kind of a random drop. Yeah, if you ever have an actual mirror drop for you in the game, you can basically get anything you want in the game with that item. Especially on console with the inflation of the market. You probably have multiple people literally trade you their inventory and it still wouldn't be worth as much as your mirror is in game. Basically like hitting the path of Exile lottery. So my hope is when someone does have a mirror drop, I hope it's, legitimately someone who doesn't have a lot of stuff in the game. I hope it is, kind of a beginner player or, a player that doesn't have a bunch of currency stacked up, just because that's the type of person who would help the most. My worst fear is that it ends up going to, one of the price gougers on the marketplace who already has, way more than they need because they've essentially squeezed it out of players. That's like the last person I want to see a mirror drop for. Let's see. Is my download coming along enough to... maybe. I'd like to actually play a little bit more on the stream tonight. It's just with the stream going, the download for the patch is so much slower. We haven't blue screened from the title screen, so that's a good thing, I suppose. Yeah, hopefully this patch actually does fix a lot of the blue screening issues. that blue screen of death is supposed to be exclusively for Windows computers, not for games. I may potentially stream to my. That's kind of the reason why I got rid of the strict streaming schedule. One was because like I have my kid turns a year old in a couple of weeks here, so I have a very young child. Some nights he just decides that he's not going to bed, and when you have a kid that's that young, you can't convince them to go to bed. They're just kind of sleep when they decide to sleep. They're in charge at that point, really, more than anything else. Thanks, man. And it's an awesome experience and everything, but yeah, I mean, there's just certain things you can and can't do. So with having a kid that young, it's a lot easier for me to just have a flexible streaming schedule. So I mean, for everyone who tunes into the streams and like subscribes on YouTube and turns on their notifications to know when I'm online and is you know dedicated enough to catch me when I'm online. Like, I appreciate that stuff. That stuff's awesome to me because, it fits my lifestyle. As a dad, I obviously have to put, my kid first before, the stuff I do on YouTube. Especially when, like, it's not my career. This is a hobby for me. And, I'll let him know. He's gonna have an awesome first birthday. He came really close to having a Pokemon themed birthday, but his mom pushed for Mickey Mouse, so he's getting a Mickey Mouse birthday. Yeah, I know, I play slow like a dad. I think, and this is just my own assumption, but I would think if you got a mirror on PS4, you could literally probably ask for just about anything you wanted to. Like, I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Like, they're so rare on PC that if you had one on PS4, like, I can't think of many things that you wouldn't be able to get. Like, just out of curiosity, I'm going to look up on PoE.Ninja like exactly what a mirror is going for right now, and it's probably a stupid amount. Okay, so here, to put this in perspective, if you have a mirror on PC where the inflation doesn't exist, it's worth just under 15,000 Chaos Orbs. So yeah, it's worth a decent amount. What's up, Inject? I'm actually waiting for the patch to finish downloading here. Since I'm streaming, the patch download's ridiculously slow. Pretty much, Tanner. Pretty much. Yeah, I was looking through the patch notes and they didn't say anything about the cyclone hit. So I honestly, I don't know. 15,000 chaos will literally buy you all the things you want in the game. So like a void battery actually on PC goes for about 69 chaos. Yeah, Mirror of Kalandra, it's a currency item. if you see one at any point during your gameplay, you're like the luckiest person in the world. I mean, so if you go on PoE.Ninja and actually look at like the different currencies, the most valuable thing is a Mirror of Calandra, and it goes for, just under 15,000 chaos. The next most valuable is a mirror shard, which are the shards that you can collect to eventually turn into a mirror, which are worth 751 chaos orbs. The next down is an exalted orb, which they have priced at 150 chaos. So, yeah. So basically, one mirror is worth about 100 exalted orbs. So, I mean, we're talking ridiculously valuable. Yeah. Keep in mind, that's all, you know, that's all on PC, where the market actually makes sense. Let's see. Hopefully this doesn't